Most people misunderstand no contact. They think it's about silence, about cutting off communication and waiting for the other person to notice. But here's the truth. No contact isn't about disappearing. It's about leaving an impact so strong that your absence feels undeniable. If they're not reaching out, it's not because they're heartless, it's because you left nothing behind for them to miss. Think about it. If someone walked out of your life right now, would you immediately feel their absence? Maybe if they had a real presence in your world, but if they were just there in the background, like white noise, would you really notice? Would you truly feel their absence? Or would it just blend into the distractions of everyday life? That's what happens when you do no contact wrong. You don't just disappear, you fade. And fading doesn't make someone chase you, it makes them forget you. This is where most people get stuck. They think that just by cutting communication, blocking or ignoring, they're creating this massive void in someone's life. But silence alone doesn't create attraction. Absence alone doesn't create longing. If you didn't give them a reason to miss you before you left, why would they suddenly start missing you after? That's why no contact, when done passively, doesn't work. It's not about just removing yourself. It's about making sure you were someone worth missing in the first place. Now, here's the mistake most people make. They go no contact, but they do it from a place of hope. They think, if I just disappear long enough, they'll realize what they lost. But do you see what's happening here? It's still about them. It's still about waiting for their realization, their move, their decision to reach out. And that's where you lose your power. Because if no contact is just a waiting game, then you're still playing by their rules. The real power of no contact is not in the silence itself, it's in what you do with that silence. It's in how you shift your energy from being someone who hopes to be noticed to someone who is so undeniably magnetic that they have to notice. See, when you remove yourself from someone's life, you have two choices. You can disappear in a way that makes them forget you, or you can create an absence so powerful that it haunts them. Not because you're playing games, but because you've left an imprint, because your presence was valuable, because you were someone who mattered, who brought something into their life, and suddenly that something is missing. And here's the part most people don't tell you. No contact isn't just about them missing you. It's about you redefining what you bring to the table. Because if you go silent and all you do is wait, obsess, check their social media, analyze their every move, you're not actually in no contact, you're just hiding. And people don't chase what's hiding. They chase what stands out. So, how do you make them feel your absence instead of just fading away? You stop making no contact about them and start making it about you. Because the moment you shift from waiting to evolving, you change the entire dynamic. And this is where the real magic happens. When you go no contact in the right way, you don't just disappear, you reappear differently. You become unpredictable. They expected you to wait. Instead, you're leveling up. They expected you to crumble. Instead, you're thriving. They expected silence. Instead, they're hearing about you, seeing glimpses of a version of you they never anticipated. And suddenly, the power shifts. Because while they were expecting you to still be thinking about them, they now have to start thinking about you. And that's when curiosity kicks in. Curiosity is the most powerful force in human attraction. It's not loss that makes someone reach out. It's wondering what's changed, wondering why they suddenly feel a shift in the energy they once took for granted, wondering why you seem different and why they're no longer as sure about your place in their life as they once were. That's why disappearing isn't enough. You have to become unforgettable. And being unforgettable doesn't mean forcing them to miss you. It means making them realize they never fully appreciated you when they had you. And that's what gets inside their head. Because here's the reality. People don't chase what's familiar. They chase what's uncertain. They chase what they thought they knew, but now suddenly don't. If you remain exactly the same, they already know your script. They already know how you feel. There's no mystery, no spark, no pull. But if they see something new, something unexpected, that's when they start questioning. That's when the tables turn. So if no contact isn't working for you, ask yourself, did you truly leave an impact? Or did you just remove yourself and hope they'd feel it? Because there's a difference, a big one. And the second you stop hoping and start becoming, that's when you stop waiting for a text and start deciding if they're even worth your time anymore. Most people go into no contact thinking, if I just disappear, they'll suddenly realize how much they miss me. But that's not how it works, is it? Because if someone isn't reaching out, if they seem perfectly fine without you, there's a reason for that. And it's not because they didn't care, it's because they knew what you were doing. They saw right through it. See, when you're predictable, when someone already knows how you feel, how you think, what you want, and what you're hoping for, they don't need to chase you. They don't need to wonder about you. And wondering is where attraction happens, not in silence, not in distance, but in uncertainty. Think about it. If I gave you a book and told you every single thing that happens from page 1 to the final chapter, would you feel compelled to read it? No, because there's nothing to discover. The same thing happens when someone already knows that if they reached out tomorrow, you'd respond instantly. That if they liked one of your photos, you'd take it as a sign and start hoping again. That even though you're quiet right now, it's only because you're waiting for them to notice. That's not mystery. That's not power. That's a script they've already read. What you need to understand is that people aren't drawn to what's obvious. They're drawn to what makes them feel something. And don't create feelings by disappearing into the background. You create them by becoming someone they can't figure out anymore. By being just different enough, just unavailable enough that they stop feeling certain about where they stand with you. Here's what happens when someone doesn't feel the need to chase. They assume they still have you, even if you're not talking, even if they haven't heard from you in weeks. They assume that if they ever wanted you back, they could have you. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. And that belief, that certainty, that's what keeps them from missing you. But what happens when that certainty gets shaken? What happens when, instead of waiting, you start living? Instead of being silent, you become unpredictable. Instead of disappearing, you let them see something new. That's when the dynamic shifts. That's when they start paying attention. Because suddenly, you're not following the script anymore. Imagine for a moment that the person who left you, the person you've been silently hoping will reach out, opens their phone, scrolls through their feed, and instead of finding a version of you that's quietly waiting, they see something different. They see you somewhere they never expected, doing something that makes them stop and look again, a shift in energy, a confidence they don't recognize. A glimpse of a you they weren't ready for. And that's when curiosity kicks in. That's when they start to wonder, wait, what's going on with them? And when people start to wonder, they start to feel. See, the real mistake isn't just waiting. The mistake is making it obvious that you're waiting. Because when you're predictable, you give them nothing to think about. No reason to wonder, no reason to feel anything different than what they've already felt. And you cannot create attraction without emotional movement, without tension, without a little bit of doubt in their mind about whether or not they really had you figured out. That's why the people who get chased aren't the ones who disappear completely. They're the ones who evolve in a way that demands attention. Not by trying to force a reaction, not by playing games, but by genuinely shifting their energy so much that the person who once overlooked them suddenly sees them in a way they didn't expect. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, but if I do this, isn't it just manipulation? No, because this isn't about making someone jealous. It's not about tricking them into wanting you. It's about breaking out of the version of yourself that they took for granted. It's about letting go of the predictability that kept you stuck in their mind as someone they didn't need to think about. And most of all, it's about shifting your focus away from them entirely. Because when you do that, when you truly start prioritizing your own growth, that's when you become magnetic without even trying. The most powerful shift you can make is going from wanting someone to notice you to realizing that you are the one who gets to decide whether they deserve access to you in the first place. And here's the irony. When you stop being predictable, when you stop waiting, when you actually move on instead of pretending to, that's when they notice. That's when they feel it. Because suddenly the security they once had in knowing you are still there is gone. And that is when they start chasing. Not because you disappeared, not because you played hard to get, but because for the first time they have to wonder whether you were ever really theirs to begin with. Most people think no contact is about complete disappearance. They believe that if they vanish, the other person will suddenly feel this overwhelming sense of loss and come running back. But that's not how human psychology works. People don't chase what they don't think about. They don't crave something that feels like it simply ceased to exist. When someone is removed from their environment too abruptly, without any lingering presence, they don't always feel a deep loss. They often just adapt. So if no contact didn't work, it's because you became invisible. And the problem with being invisible is that it doesn't create desire, it creates nothing. It doesn't fuel intrigue, it doesn't make someone wonder, it doesn't shift the power dynamic in any way. This is why a more effective strategy isn't total disappearance, but controlled exposure. Controlled exposure is about staying on their radar in a way that ignites curiosity rather than closure. The mistake most people make when trying to reattract someone is either going completely silent or making their presence too obvious, too deliberate, and too desperate. They either vanish or they try too hard to be seen. But the real power is in being felt without forcing yourself into their awareness. Think about the last time you noticed something because it was just slightly different. Right? Not dramatically changed, not screaming for attention, but subtly off in a way that made you do a double take. That's what you're aiming for. If they have come to expect a certain version of you, your job is to disrupt that expectation, not with direct confrontation, not with obvious bids for attention, but with shifts that make them pause and ask, wait, what's going on here? This isn't about posting a selfie looking good and hoping they like it. It's not about throwing a cryptic quote on your story and waiting for a reaction. That's too transparent. Too predictable. It's about crafting a presence that suggests evolution, that implies you're moving in a way they weren't prepared for. It's when they catch a glimpse of you through social circles, through mutual connections, through unexpected but undeniable shifts, and they don't just see you, they see a new energy they can't place. Let's be clear. Controlled exposure isn't about playing games or trying to manipulate someone into caring. It's about making sure they feel the ripple effect of your growth, even if they aren't actively searching for it. When you strategically place yourself in their world without making it obvious, it creates a subconscious pull. They might not even realize why they're suddenly thinking about you, why they're checking your page, why they're wondering what's different, but they are. This works because human beings are wired for curiosity. We are drawn to things that are slightly unfamiliar, yet still within reach. When someone expects you to be in a certain emotional place, whether that's sad, stuck, or still hoping, and you disrupt that expectation, it shakes their certainty. And certainty is what keeps people comfortable in their decision to walk away. If they believe you're exactly where they left you, they don't feel urgency. If they see movement, if they sense something changing, suddenly their mind starts filling in the blanks. So how do you do this in practice? It's subtle. It's the shift in the way you carry yourself, the new experiences you immerse yourself in, the way you start showing up differently without needing validation. It's not announcing, look at me, I've changed. It's them realizing through the small windows they still have into your life that something is different, something they don't have access to anymore. Maybe it's through mutual friends who mention something about you in passing. Maybe it's the way you subtly update your social presence, not in a way that screams desperation, but in a way that reflects someone who is in motion. Maybe it's them hearing about you in contexts they never expected. The point is they feel you moving forward without you needing to shove it in their face. The paradox is that when you make your growth too obvious, it loses its power. It becomes a performance. And performances don't create real intrigue, they create skepticism. But when it's just enough for them to notice without you directly telling them to, that's when it sticks. That's when they start wondering. And wondering is where attraction begins again. What happens when someone starts wondering about you? They start looking. They start checking in ways they wouldn't admit. They start feeling like they're missing something. And what do people do when they feel like they're missing something? They try to fill in the gaps. That's when they start reaching out, testing the waters, trying to gauge if what they're sensing is real. But here's the most important part. By the time they do, you have to be in a place where you don't even need their validation. This entire approach works not because it tricks them into wanting you back, but because it shifts the power balance back into your hands. If they reach out and you're still emotionally dependent on their attention, you've lost. But if they reach out and you're in a space where their curiosity doesn't dictate your value, that's when you've truly won. Controlled exposure isn't about making them jealous. It's about making them feel the absence of who you were while showing them, in small but undeniable ways, that you've become someone even more compelling in their absence. And the irony? By the time they start feeling it, you may not even want them anymore. And that is real power. Most people struggle with no contact, not because they miss their ex, but because deep down they're still hoping for a reaction. They check their phone, wondering if a message will pop up. They scroll through social media, searching for some kind of sign. And when nothing happens, they start to panic. Why aren't they reaching out? Did they ever care? Did I mean anything at all? That spiral right there, that's what keeps people stuck. But here's the truth. No contact isn't just about cutting off communication. It's about cutting off attachment. It's about shifting from a place of waiting to a place of owning your life. The moment you genuinely detach, your energy shifts. And when your energy shifts, everything changes. See, attraction is never built from a place of need. If someone can feel that you're still waiting, that you're still emotionally invested in their validation, they have no reason to be pulled back in. There's no urgency, no curiosity, no sense of loss on their end, because even in your silence, they know you're still there, they can feel it. And that's why most people fail at no contact. They think it's about what they do, when really it's about what they stop needing. When you truly detach, something powerful happens. Your focus shifts from them to you. You stop thinking about whether they miss you, whether they regret leaving, whether they're seeing someone else. Instead, you start thinking about what actually makes you happy, what excites you, what challenges you, what fuels you. And that shift, that's when you become magnetic again. Not because you're trying to be, but because you're no longer holding on to dead weight. You become lighter, freer, more attractive, not just to them, but to everyone around you. Most people try to fake detachment. They go out, post pictures, try to make their ex jealous, but deep down, they're still checking for a reaction. They're still emotionally invested, and trust me, people feel that. You can't manufacture true detachment. You have to become it. And the only way to get there is to let go of the need for any specific outcome. Here's the key. Stop making their reaction, or lack of one, your measure of progress. If you're still waiting for them to notice you've changed, you haven't actually changed. Real detachment means realizing that their response is irrelevant. It means reaching a point where it genuinely doesn't matter whether they come back or not, because either way, you're good. Either way, your life is moving forward. Either way, you're thriving. That's what people don't understand about attraction. The moment you truly stop caring is the moment they start paying attention. It's not because you played a game. It's not because you manipulated them into missing you. It's because you shifted your energy completely. You stopped radiating need and you started radiating confidence. And that difference, that's what pulls people in. When you detach, you stop acting from fear. You stop overthinking every little thing. You stop questioning if you should post that picture, if you should go to that event, if you should change your number just to get a reaction. You stop making decisions based on them and you start making decisions based on you. And as soon as you do that, you start living in a way that naturally creates attraction. because nothing is more attractive than someone who is completely unapologetically living their life. Now, here's where people get stuck. They think detachment means shutting off their emotions completely. That's not the goal. You're human. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to miss them, to have moments of doubt, but you don't act from that place. You acknowledge it, and then you keep moving forward anyway. That's the difference between someone who truly detaches and someone who's just pretending to. One is still secretly waiting. The other has already moved on. And when you move on, really move on, you become someone new, someone stronger, wiser, more confident. And that version of you, that's the person they start to wonder about. That's the person they realize they might have lost for good. But by the time they do, you're already gone. You see, the real flex isn't making them jealous. It's reaching a place where their presence or absence doesn't change a single thing about your happiness. That's when you win. And that's when they feel it the most. Nothing unsettles someone more than realizing they're no longer special to you. It's one of the hardest truths to accept because for the longest time you held them in a place of significance. You built a version of them in your mind that felt irreplaceable, and the idea of losing them felt unbearable. But the moment they start believing you will always be there, you lose your power in the dynamic. The chase dies, the intrigue fades, and the worst part, they don't even have to try anymore. See, human nature is simple. We value what feels scarce. The second someone senses they have a permanent place in your heart, whether they earn it or not, they take it for granted. They don't wake up thinking about you. They don't feel the urgency to fight for you. Why? Because you've unknowingly reassured them that no matter what they do, you'll still be there, waiting. And that's the moment they stop seeing you as a prize and start seeing you as an option. If you want to turn this around, you have to shift your entire mindset. You don't get people to value you by begging, convincing, or reminding them of what you bring to the table. You make them feel your absence by living in a way that forces them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about you. This isn't about games. It's about showing them and yourself that their place in your life was never guaranteed. The mistake people make is thinking no contact means completely disappearing and hoping the absence does the work for them. But if they're not reaching out, it's because they're not feeling the loss. That's where most people go wrong. The reality is, you don't need to disappear. You need to become a version of yourself that makes them question everything. You do this by showing, not telling, that you've moved on. And not just moved on, but upgraded. When someone assumes they have you locked in, nothing disrupts that assumption more than seeing you thrive in ways they never expected. That's why emotional detachment is so powerful. You have to stop acting like their presence or absence dictates your worth. Because the moment they see that their validation is no longer required for you to be happy, that's when their sense of security begins to crumble. There's something psychologically unsettling about realizing you're replaceable. When you stop reaching out, stop liking their posts, stop reacting to their breadcrumbs, they may not notice at first. But when they check back in, because they will check back in, and see that you're completely unfazed, it forces a shift in their mind. They start wondering, wait, were they really as into me as I thought? Did I misread this? That's when curiosity kicks in. And curiosity is the seed of attraction. Now, this isn't about making someone jealous by posting calculated stories or pretending to be happy when you're not. That's performative. People can smell desperation disguised as confidence. True indifference isn't loud. It's quiet. It's the kind of energy that says, I'm too busy creating a life I love to worry about whether or not you're watching. And that's what gets their attention. Because here's the truth. People want what they feel they might lose. And when someone assumes you're stuck in the past, still waiting for them, they have no reason to return. But when they start seeing a different version of you, one that's flourishing, unpredictable, and completely detached from their opinion, that's when they start feeling the shift. And the irony, by the time they realize they want to be a part of your world again, you've already outgrown them. So don't wait for them to come back. Don't make moves hoping they'll notice. Just become the kind of person that naturally makes people question why they ever left in the first place. And when they finally do, you'll realize you don't even need them anymore. Most people think the goal of no contact is to make someone miss you, to get inside their head, to trigger their emotions so they come crawling back. But let's be honest, if you're still waiting for that text, still checking their social media, still wondering if they've noticed your absence, then you haven't really moved on. You're just playing a game where they still have all the power. See, the real flex isn't making them jealous. It isn't waiting for the day they wake up and realize what they lost. It isn't even about proving a point. The real flex is indifference, not coldness, not resentment, just that pure, effortless state of mind where whether they reach out or not, it genuinely doesn't affect your life. That's where true power lies. Because think about it, the moment you stop waiting, the moment you stop looking over your shoulder, something fascinating happens. Your energy shifts. You stop moving through life with the subconscious hope that they'll notice. And when you stop performing for their attention, you start living for yourself. And people can feel that. It's one thing to pretend you don't care. It's another thing entirely to actually not care. The first is a strategy. The second is freedom. Most people get stuck in this trap of wanting to prove their worth. They say, I'll show them what they lost. But the second you're still trying to show them, you've already lost because you're still making it about them. When you reach true indifference, it's no longer about being seen. It's about being so locked into your own growth, your own journey, your own joy, that whether they're watching or not becomes irrelevant. And that's when things get interesting, because when you actually move on, not as a tactic, but as a truth, they do feel it. Not because you're making them, but because you've disappeared in a way that isn't about them anymore. You've stopped leaving the door open. You've stopped making yourself an option. And for the first time, they realize they don't have access to you anymore. Not because you're playing a game, but because you've actually outgrown the version of yourself that needed them. That's the difference. Some people go no contact and they're still waiting. They're quiet, but inside, they're still desperate to be noticed. Others go no contact and something shifts internally. They stop checking. They stop wondering. They stop caring. And when that shift happens, that's when the dynamic reverses. Because now, you're the one who's hard to reach. Now, you're the one whose attention is scarce. Now they're the ones looking at you and realizing, wait, did I lose them for good? And this is where people get it wrong. They think, if I get to that point, will they come back? But that's the wrong question, because when you actually reach that point, you won't want them to. That's the irony of all of this. By the time they finally feel it, by the time they reach out, you'll have already moved so far past them that the idea of going back will feel small. And if they do come back, it won't be a victory. It won't be the moment you thought it would be. It'll be a realization that they no longer fit the life you've built for yourself. That's when you know you've won. When their return is no longer a reward, but a reminder of how much better you are without them. So if no contact didn't work, it's because you were still using it as a tool to get a reaction. But the real alternative isn't a darker, more calculated version of that. The real alternative is emotional detachment so deep that they no longer have any power over your emotions at all. And when you get there, you'll realize you never needed them to miss you, because you'll be too busy loving the life you built without them